Hello there, I'm Alistair and this is Accessible Photography. If you're into film photography, especially vintage cameras and older cameras, you'll know that things don't always go to plan. Today I'm going to show you my film development process. It doesn't require a darkroom and it doesn't rely on lots of different chemicals and it doesn't demand precise measuring or mixing. It is a much more accessible way to develop film, something far more people can realistically try. But before we get into that, I should say that this video didn't quite turn out as planned because, well, disaster struck. Here's how it was meant to begin. Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's Alistair and this is Accessible Photography. Now, if you saw a recent episode, you saw that I was at the National Portrait Gallery, and this is the same day. I am walking around with one of my 35mm film cameras. The camera I was using decided to break just before it came out. I tested it and it failed to operate. At this moment in time, I'm just going to walk around a bit. St Andrew's Square in Edinburgh. I'm going to walk around the general area, maybe down to Princes Street, George Street, Queen Street, and just take some snaps and see how they come out. The camera I showed there, this one, was given to me by my brother a few years ago for my collection. I decided to take it out instead of my usual camera after doing what I thought was a sensible check beforehand. And that check revealed that the battery was dead and that it wouldn't wind on and it wouldn't fire properly, which it does now because I've managed to fix it. So I did what seemed like the obvious thing. I picked up this old, untested FM, loaded a roll of film and headed out. What I didn't realise was this camera also had a problem. In this case, the shutter is either out of sync or the curtain simply isn't moving properly at higher shutter speeds. When I developed the film, as you will see, I found I only had 6 images and 5 of those were partial exposures. I'd gone out intending to capture places that meant something to me. The Balmoral Hotel, for example, a place I worked many years ago. Inside, there's a beautiful stained glass staircase and I spent some time photographing it. But the images didn't come out as expected, just fragments really, because the slower shutter speeds were the only speeds that kind of worked. Outside, I captured a busy crossing, but directly opposite there was a busker. I photographed her and I spoke to a lovely couple who were enjoying the music and kindly agreed to the image of them being used in the video. But I got nothing, not a trace. From there, I worked further down Leith Walk to Weck's camera shop and picked up another roll of film. I'd gone through 24 exposures a little bit quicker than I expected, even though I was trying to be quite careful with what I took. On the way back, I kept shooting until disaster struck again and the camera stopped working entirely. So I was about to take another few images, maybe finish the film before I got back to the bus, and the camera wouldn't wind on, which is exactly what happened to my other camera before I came away. So I don't know if I've managed to break 2 cameras in one day, but it was working absolutely fine and just suddenly will not wind on. When I got home, I realised how simple and avoidable this problem was. I'm used to the idea that the shutter won't fire if the wind on lever is closed. I checked that, still nothing. What I hadn't noticed is this model has a locking ring underneath the shutter release and I'd inadvertently flicked that on. Later that week, I gave the camera another chance, not knowing that nothing was really coming out. My photography club was doing some fire spinning, wire wool, set alight, and I thought it would be a good test for the camera. I matched the settings as closely as I could to the ZF, crossed my fingers and hoped for the best. Those settings were around ISO 400 to match the film and between 20 and 30 seconds exposure. After the next section, where I show you the development process, I'll come back and show you how I scan the film and what the results are like. At this point, I've not even seen the images properly. So what I'm going to do just now is take the film out this camera, the one that I have decided is probably not working properly. It looks like the shutter isn't working. Without further ado, let's get the film out of this, into a daylight changing processing tank, and we'll see what we get. Now take it back to the point where I feel it unclip. That's it. So it's unclicked from the spool here. I've got this little bit of roll of film here, that's all that's on it, and you can see I've had that in already. I've got 13 there, which was telling me the position that the frame count was at, so I took it to about 14 or 15 to take some more images, which I did in the evening. So I've now taken 18 images, if I get any images at all. Right, so this is the Lomography Lumo Daylight Developing Tank System for 35mm. What it doesn't tell you, and I've discovered, is it's essentially set up for 24 exposures only. If you put a 36 in, you ain't going to do it. So take this bit out, and I trim my film. Put some corners in. And then get ready to put that into here. Right, so the film is barely showing here. That's exactly how it should be. It shouldn't be sticking out a long way, and the reason being is if it's sticking out, it won't slide into here. That just drops in. And then turn this into lock, so that's locked in place. So that's not going to come out. And then we've got this little device here. And as I start turning this, that should turn. There we go. 6, 7, 8, 24, about 25, I think. Right, we're very careful here that I don't shred. There we go. That's the end. No, a bit more. That's the end. Okay. Pull that out. I just want to be really sure I've got all the film out. Yep, that's the end. It doesn't really matter that I might leave some film in this one because I didn't finish the film. But if you photograph right up to the very end, which I have done, if this doesn't take it all the way in, you lose the last shots. And in the last film that I actually developed, I only got a fraction of one of the frames, and I don't even know if it was the last frame because I took the images so long ago. So anyway, I've done that, and now, so I go from lock, and I go cut. That's it, cut. And then rewind just a little bit, and that should just pop out. There we go. Just make sure that's not getting any light in. And that's the film. And as you see, that's at the end. It just started to rip holes into that, and it should be, that's the end. Okay, put this aside carefully, and then it's time to develop the film. Okay, so this is Cine Still Film DF96. It's a monobath, which means I only have effectively one chemical going in to develop the film. So it's a developer and fixer. So in the past you'd have had developer, fixer, stopper, I think, and then a wash at the end. So I've got wash ready to go, so that's It's not just washing with water, it's just a little chemical to make sure that it's all nice and clean and dries properly. All I'm doing just now is checking the temperature, and the temperature is actually low. I'm at 20 degrees instead of a preferred 21 or 22. So I'm going to warm this up. So I brought this up to the minimum temperature requirement of 21 degrees centigrade. It was sitting at 20 because this is Scotland and it's not a hot country. So I've brought it up using basically a sink of hot water. Got that up very quickly. And what I'm going to do now is pour it into the container, and I don't need to measure it out because it's got basically a point that you fill to, which is going to be here. And that's all I need. So let's just pour this in. I was going to start the timer before this went in and I forgot. Right, that's it. Start agitating. Get my timer going. Start the timer. So I'm doing this just to get it going, and I get the lid on top. That's the lid on top. And it has got a clamp, but I want to get going with the agitation as quickly as possible. I'm going to take a quick pause in the agitation to put the clamp on. Let's just make sure that it doesn't burst open, and put the top back on the chemical. Wipe my hand. Right. A little bit more than 30 seconds agitation. Okay, so I'm going to be doing this for, it says between 3 and 6 minutes, and the last one I did, the last two I've done were around 6 minutes, but after each bath it says increase by 15 seconds, so it's hardly accurate, so I'm just going to do upwards of 6 minutes. Okay, that's my 6 minutes. I can stop that now and then bring this in. Now, I've actually got a tub to catch the contents, but I'm using a basin here because it can overflow as I undo the top. So I'm going to take the clamp off. Stand up to do this. So I'm going to take that out just now. Release. I don't know if you can see what's happening here. I'm scared to pull it off hard because it spills. Ah, there we go. Right. Right, now I'm going to wash the film. So I'm trying to get the flow onto the main film itself and agitate it all the time, get a good clean of that, and I want to be doing that for 5 minutes. So I've done 4 minutes. I'm going to pour the water out of there, and then I've got a jug of, what do you call this again? 2 seconds. Mirasol 2000 anti-static, and this is to basically do a final wash and make sure everything clears just nice. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but never mind. It's basically a washing fluid, and it just makes it nice and clean. So you can see the empty images all the way through. So just agitate that. Probably shouldn't have my finger in there. So when I last did this sort of thing properly, when I was at school, there was no rubber gloves. We just got on with it. No rubber gloves, no safety glasses, nothing. Get on with it. That was schools in the 80s for you. There you go, 17-year-old, off you go and play with some chemicals. We did get told how to do it. Right. Final re-rinse. Probably shouldn't do that. Okay. Now for the big reveal. So what I do is take the center out, and what I've done before, run and peel, is undo that, put that to the side, and then let that fall. And there are pictures. I have pictures. Thank goodness. So squeegee. Okay, I think I've got the same problem I had before of half images. So hanging it up to dry, and eventually we'll have a look at what images are there. But I know the far ones have come out. Maybe not great, but they're there. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 3.5 images from my 24 roll of film. Okay, so the film has had a couple of hours to dry, and it's looking quite good. Let me show it against the screen here with the other camera so we can see what we've got. So there you are. There's a lot of pretty much blank. I can see the edges of images, so just here there's a couple of images showing. There's a very faint one here, I'm not sure what that is, and then there's what looks like, I think it'll be up this way, partial images. I reckon that's probably going to be 4 partials. So let's get them trimmed and scanned. So this is now set up, ready to go, and I'm going to be transferring into here. So what I'm using is View Scan. It's set up to do black and white negatives, and I've just run a quick scan on the blank, so this will probably muck things naming up a little bit. So let's just do a scan on the first image. It's coming in okay. You can actually see the individual lines of the swirl, which is really cool, that, but then it's cut off, completely cut off. So this image is 20 to 30 seconds, and I've got an image of the shutter halfway through on the negative. So there's definitely something major wrong with this shutter. It's not just, when it's shooting fast, it's covering, this is a 30 seconds maybe exposure. It's not good. Film photography isn't as simple as digital. There's cost to consider for one thing, and you don't get instant feedback. You don't know what you've captured until you've developed a film, or sent it away and waited. And imagine paying for processing only to get back 3 or 4 usable images. It can be quite frustrating, but when it does work, it's incredibly satisfying. Here are some images from the roll of film that have been sitting in my main camera for a couple of years. They're not spectacular. It was a dull winter day, the film is ISO 400, and the grain is quite pronounced. But that's part of the appeal. There's something about film that feels honest. These aren't heavily manipulated images. They're simply the result of light, timing, and a bit of luck. People often describe film photos as feeling more real, and I think that's what it is they're responding to. So I'll leave you with this. Photography isn't always about capturing that perfect image or creating something that will perform well online. It's a process. It's a creative one. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Film, just like digital, doesn't guarantee a great result every time you press the shutter. The enjoyment comes from working with the limitations and understanding the quirks of your tools and creating something that you like And that, in the end, is what really matters. What you like. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. I've got some editing to do.